We've all heard it a bunch of times now. Senior Tories are challenged on having tanked the economy, and they respond by blaming Vladimir Putin. And this week, Nadhim Zahawi tried a similar manoeuvre up against Piers Morgan on BBC Question Time. It backfired.
What I haven't heard from anybody at senior level in this party in the last 10 days is one word: sorry. Sorry to the country for what you have put the country through. You want to say it?
So, Piers, you said that...
One word.
You said, no, I'm going to tell you. Liz said, I've listened and I get it, which is why 95% of her economic policy, of her growth plan, she wanted to protect and will deliver, right? The stuff we've just talked about.
But are you sorry about the damage that's been done?
And the 5% that was damaging, she cut, and as Wilfred said, you cut and you move forward. We've got 24 months to do. But Piers, now hold a second.
I think the public...
I'm going to tell you right now, if you give me a chance.
Sure.
Ask yourself this question. What would Vladimir Putin want us to do? He wants to be divided right now because he's using energy.
Oh, come on.
Because he's using energy.
Come on.
Absolutely.
Oh, come on.
You can't say sorry because Vladimir Putin may not like it.
I said to you...
Nadhim, people are laughing.
Well, hold on a second. Hold on a second.
I just want to point that out.
Really?
Do you not believe that Vladimir Putin is using energy, which is where the inflation is coming from, where countries around the world are having to raise interest rates?
With respect, what does this have to do with a simple apology to the British people for the train wreck that has happened in the last 10 days?
I just said to you, Liz, in her conference, she said, I get it, and I
Are you sorry?
I changed the policy.
Are you sorry?
Of course I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
No, I mean, we've heard before, politicians asked, why have interest rates risen? Why is the pound falling? Why is the cost of government borrowing increasing? And they say, look, this is all because of Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Yes, that has increased oil and gas prices. That is undeniable. And then what people say is, yeah, but this all happened on that particular Friday when you did that mini budget. So the argument has some validity, but it completely falls down when it comes to the timing. What Nadhim Zahawi said there is just, as Alice in Wonderland stuff. He's saying, I can't say sorry because what Vladimir Putin wants is division. And if I were to say sorry, that would be evidence of division. I mean, within 30 seconds, he did go on to say sorry. So it's, not really following his own rules. But I mean, that was just completely bizarre. And it was, I suppose, refreshing to see that, I mean, he was completely just... The whole room laughed. Everyone on the panel laughed. The whole room laughed. I can't say sorry because Vladimir Putin wants division. Like, wow. Gary, do you think they're going to stop doing this? Whenever they're asked anything about the economy, whenever they're asked anything about interest rates, they say, oh, no, it's Vladimir Putin. And people say, yeah, but your mini budget was on Friday and it all changed on Friday. Is anyone buying this? What do you think traders think when they see them saying this?
I did a video right at the beginning of the Ukraine war saying that this war is going to be a disaster for this country, because it is going to end up being completely blamed for the massive cost of living crisis and inflationary crisis that we're going into. Now, I put a video out at the very beginning of COVID saying when lockdowns are finished, you are going to see a massive crisis of inflation, of inequality, of cost of living, because during COVID, the government gave £600 billion to the richest people in the country. Now, that is £12,000 per adult, right? So if we were to take that back from them, we could give £12,000 to every adult in the country. Imagine the government took £12,000 from every adult and gave it to the rich. What do you think would happen? Well, that happened during COVID. And I was screaming, this is going to cause a collapse in the standard of living of ordinary British families. And we would have seen that and we would have had a chance to push back and say, listen, let's not accept this. Let's tax the rich. Let's take the money back. But as soon as that war happened, you could see the government is going to completely blame that war. It's going to completely blame Putin. And that is going to kill our chances of changing, of reversing that massive increase in inequality during COVID. So it's devastating because if it was not for this war, and listen, I'm not at all pretending the worst people affected by this war are the people in this country. But if it were not for that war, we could reverse this economic damage by taking that enormous amount of money back from the richest individuals in the country. But because of that, it's completely killed our chances of doing that, which has basically guaranteed a permanent collapse in living standards. And they're going to keep rolling on this. And, I cannot make this point strongly enough, okay? The economic pain that you are feeling as an ordinary family is not being caused by Vladimir Putin. We have seen the biggest and fastest ever increase in inequality in the history of this country in the last 3 years. Of course, it is going to be followed by a massive decrease in standard of living for ordinary families, which I would like to hasten is accompanied by the biggest and fastest ever increase in wealth and standard of living for the rich. I really want to make it clear to people what is happening now to your standard of life, to your cost of living. It's not Vladimir Putin. Look what's happening to house prices and rents. That's not Vladimir Putin's family living in them houses. That is happening because the richest have never gotten as rich as they have in the last 3 years as quickly. And that is why your standard of living is hurting.
Can I get you to expand a little bit? Because I think this point is really important. And the first time you explained it to me, I needed a few things sort of laid out, because people might think you're saying the government gave 12 grand, well, gave all this money to rich people and didn't give any money to poor people. Now, what the immediate response, I think, from many people will be, well, furlough did actually go to, lots of ordinary people. The £20 universal credit uplift, that did go to ordinary people. So what are you talking about that this money was given to the rich? And why did, during COVID, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer relative to the rich, when actually a lot of those government programs were targeted or at least available to people at the lower end of the income spectrum? Can you sort of explain how that works?
When at the beginning of COVID, you could see the government we're going to give out hundreds of billions of pounds. I was sitting there thinking, who is going to get this money? Where's the money going to end up? Because if you consider the situation of a furloughed worker, yes, they're receiving a lot of money from the government, but they're not ending up richer than they were before COVID, right? Because it's simply replacing their ordinary wages. So who actually ends up with the money? So what I did was I followed this money through the system, right? Okay, ordinary workers are not getting richer because they're not receiving their wages. So who's getting the wages? Okay, well, the companies have the wages. But during COVID, companies didn't get richer either because they were totally shut down. The people who actually had the wages were the customers who are no longer going to the companies, right? But the key is it's not all customers, right? So if you're an ordinary family, the vast majority of your spending is rent, mortgage, food, bills. You still had those expenditures during COVID. But if you're a very, very wealthy person, most of your expenditures are luxuries, like luxury holidays, luxury restaurants, luxury bars, luxury hotels. That stuff was all closed down during COVID. Now, when the government jumped in to replace those incomes, that made things look fine from the perspective of ordinary people. But they got the incomes, they used it to pay their bills. It went to the owners of the assets, who were the rich, who simply weren't spending for 2 whole years, which meant there was a 600 billion flow of cash from the government to ordinary workers to the rich who kept it. And I was screaming at the beginning of COVID, listen, we're not going to go back to normal. We're going to go back to a normal where the average rich person is sitting on an extra 100, 200 grand cash in their bank. That's not a normal economy. It's inevitable. You're going to see a massive increase in inequality and inflation for ordinary people. And it's so important people understand this. And it's the thing I've been trying to get through to people. Look, if the government gives you £1,000 and the rich £100,000, you will get poorer because they will use that money to buy the assets that you need: food, energy, housing, healthcare. And that is what happened during COVID. We had the biggest and fastest ever increase in inequality in the history of the country. And people need to understand that. If inequality gets bigger, they get richer, you get poorer, and your standard of life gets worse.
We're going to move back to this issue of Putin, because as that Question Time clip showed, the Putin-based excuses for Tory failure are beginning to wear thin. Well, they're always wearing thin, to be honest. But some appear to be hoping that if Putin upped the ante in Ukraine, that could still save the Conservatives. Paul Goodman is editor of Conservative Home. This is what he told Newsnight when asked about Liz Truss's authority.
Let's never forget that tomorrow looks different from today. So I'm going to enter the proviso at the start that if Vladimir Putin explodes a tactical nuclear weapon in Ukraine before Christmas, the entire domestic political conversation will change.
When you're sort of silver lining, Liz Truss might be extraordinarily unpopular at the moment. People might have hated her mini budget that crashed the pound. But, if Vladimir Putin were to use nuclear weapons, then maybe people would change their minds. If your election strategy for 2024 involves between now and then there being some sort of nuclear catastrophe, it's potentially time to quit. Very briefly, Gary, do you agree with the editor of Conservative Home? If Putin uses nuclear weapons, will people forgive Liz Truss?
The Conservatives need something, right? They tried to just spaff a load of money at the rich. That was obviously rejected. They need something else to keep popularity. And, this is the kind of stuff that you're likely to get. They're going to go on about Ukraine a hell of a lot. They're going to talk about asylum seekers and refugees. They're going to drive up hatred wherever they can. I think people just need to remember we've seen the largest and fastest ever increase in millionaire and billionaire wealth. This energy package is going to cost 150 billion, okay? The Times rich list, 250 individuals, increased wealth by 106 billion in the first year of COVID, just 250 individuals. If we looked at them, we could fix this. If we spend all our time talking about Putin, we're not going to.